The epidermis. It is the outer, non vascular, and thin region of the skin. It is made up of stratified epithelium. That is, it is made up of several layers of cells. If you remember the tissue lesson, what we studied, the stratified epithelium, that is, several layers of cells packed together one above the other. And the thickness of this epidermis, it differs in different regions of the body. That is, it is thicker in the palms and the soles and thinner, very thinner in the lip region. That is why it gives extra sensitivity to the lips. So this epidermis is divided into three regions. The outermost cornified layer, which is also called as stratum corneum, the middle layer, which is called as the granular layer, and the inner malphagian layer, which is also termed as germinative layer, as you can see them labeled in the diagrams. The outermost thick region is the cornified layer. Then you have a thin layer, the dark reddish color line, what you can see. Only that line is the granular layer. And the lower purplish red color layer is the malphagian layer. And this diagram also shows you the ridges and the grooves formed by the epidermis. So let us see each layer one by one. So the outermost layer, that is the cornified layer called as stratum corneum. It is very thick in the palms and the soles, and it is composed of clear, dead, scale-like cells. They become more and more flattened as they move towards the surface. The nuclei of these cells is lost. So, as the cells start moving from the inner to the outer layer, the nucleus also starts disappearing from the cells. As well as the cytoplasm of these cells is replaced by insoluble protein, which is called as keratin. Here you can see the cells are there which are containing the keratin. Those are called as the melanocytes. So the keratin, or also termed as horn. So it is an insoluble protein. So the outermost dead layer, which is the keratinized cells, they constitute the stratum corneum. Now this, because of the keratin, it becomes a waterproof and a germ-proof layer. It is a cast-off of small pieces at intervals. That is, we shed off our skin at every intervals during our lifetime. And on an average, a person sheds off about 23 kgs of skin in this manner in the whole lifetime. And the rate at which we shed our skin, at the same rate, we also develop new cells. They are formed in the lower layers. So it is balancing the thickness of the epidermis. That is, at times when you stay in a room which is totally closed, air-conditioned room, and yet when you sweep the room, you find some fine dust. That dust is nothing but the skin which is shed off from the person's body living in that room. So the cornified layer, it helps us in these three major functions. That is, it offers resistance to mechanical damage, does not give any mechanical damage to the inner living tissue, as it is already keratinized and becomes thick. Then it works as a bacterial infection, prevents bacterial infection. There is resistance to bacterial infection because it is impermeable, and because it is horny, it prevents the loss of water from the skin by the process of evaporation. Then the granular layer. The granular layer, it consists of 2 to 5 rows of flattened rhombus shaped cells. So it is a very thin middle layer. So having only 2 to 5 rows of flattened rhombus shaped cells. And the cells of these layers, they contain a large number of keratinohyaline granules. That is why it is called as the granular layer. And they stain very deeply. These granules, they give a very deep stain. They contain a clear nucleus, that is, nucleus is present here, but as we studied in the corneum, the outer layer, the nucleus is already lost. And as these cells move out to the outer layer, the cells start drying up. Then the inner layer, which is called as the malphagian layer. So this innermost layer of the epidermis, it has cells which are actively dividing, and the process by which they divide, it is termed as mitosis. So the cells of this layer, they divide very actively by a process termed as mitosis. Hence, they are also known as stratum germinativum. So the new cells which are produced, they are pushed outwards, and these cuboidal shape cells, as they are pushed outwards, they start becoming flattened and they reach the outermost layer. So what happens as they go to the outermost layer? They fit very closely to each other, and then they start getting flattened and they form the part of the granular layer. So these cells, as the new cells are being formed on the outer layer, the old cells are being shed off. So this helps to maintain the thickness of the epidermis. Then coming to the coloration of the skin. The coloration of the skin is dependent upon two factors. One is the blood in the capillaries of connective tissue beneath the epidermis. Now this you can understand very clearly in very young children, or you can say even newborn children who are not much exposed to the sunlight. If you see the skin of these babies, you can see that as pinkish color. That is, the blood capillaries which are present just below the skin, and the blood rushing through those capillaries gives a pinkish red tinge to the skin. So that is one reason to have the color to the skin. And the second is on the presence of varying amount of melanin pigment produced by melanocytes which are present beneath the epidermal cells. As you can see the diagram shown below in the slide, you can see the melanocyte cell, and these type of melanocytes are present in the germinative layer of the epidermis. So these melanocytes, they produce a pigment which is called as the melanin, and this melanin is responsible for the coloration of the skin. So the melanin which is produced by melanocytes, it is present in the epidermal cells, and it gives protection by absorbing the ultraviolet rays from the sun. So when the skin is subjected to the sunlight, or it is exposed to sunlight for a longer duration, it results in tanning. Tanning means the skin starts becoming darker. Okay, but this tanning can be removed when the person reduces the time limit or the exposure to sunlight. So it comes back to normal. Hence, the amount of melanin in the skin is directly proportional to the exposure to light. So more melanin is found in the skin where the sun rays are more intense. That is the tropical regions, and it is less in the colder regions. So you find people who are fairer in the colder regions and little bit darker in shade in the tropical regions. But there are some people who don't develop melanin at all, and hence you find them having very bright light skin. And if these people are exposed to sunlight even for a few minutes, they get serious burns. They are not able to bear the sunlight even for a short span of time, and they require an umbrella. So people who have melanin, the melanin works as an umbrella for them from the effect of sunlight. Now this diagram here shows you how the pigmentation gives the color to the skin. See the diagram. Melanin, the dots inside show you the concentration of melanin. As the melanin increases, the complexion of the person goes on becoming darker and darker, and lesser quantity of pigment, the person becomes fair. But the abnormal pigmentation in the skin, it also produces some disorders. So here we will study about two disorders. First one is leukoderma. It is also called as vitiligo. It is a condition in which the skin pigmentation is lost in patches. Not complete, but slowly it is lost in patches of various sizes. Some patches may be big, some patches may be small. And this can happen in different parts of the body. It is harmless disorder, and the exact reason of this is still not known. You can see the diagram. It shows you how the color is lost in patches. Sometimes with medication the color is brought back. Sometimes it remains the same, but it does not cause any other harm. The second is albinism. It is a hereditary disease in which there is complete absence of pigment. That is, the pigment is not present at all in the skin. There is no melanin. And the skin looks completely white. As you can see in the diagram, their hair is also white. The eyelashes, eyebrows, and even the iris looks completely white. This is a hereditary disease. It comes from parents to children if the parents are having a defective gene for this. In such people, a person suffering from this disorder is called as an albino. So albino is a person who is suffering from albinism, that is complete loss of pigmentation from the skin. So the person looks very pink, as you can see in the picture. The child looks totally whitish pink. That is just because the blood which is flowing through the capillaries below in the epidermis, that gives a reflection of pinkish color to the skin. Next is the dermis. The dermis is the inner thick layer of the connective tissue. It is a vascular region which is 2 to 3 times thicker than the epidermis, and it is differentiated into two regions, the papillary region and the reticular region. The outer region of the dermis, that is the papillary region, it is the outer region, and it consists of loose connective tissue. It is produced into ridges and grooves. As you can see at the end of the diagram, the ridges and the grooves are clearly shown to you. The two parts are separated. The epiderm, that is the dermis part, the papillary region. And this is fitted very closely with the lower side of the epidermis. In this region are present free nerve endings and sensory corpuscles. That is, the nerve endings are present there, the sensory receptors. And the lower reticular region, that is, it is present below the papillary region. The remaining part of the dermis, it is called as reticular region. It consists of dense connective tissue. So here you can see the dermis region along with the other substances. It also consists of blood vessels which form a network of capillaries. Then it has nerve fibers that end in receptors, that is the touch corpuscles. Then it also has sensory organs, hair follicles, sweat glands and various other skin derivatives. Normally, what is dermis? What you can see in the picture? Yes, you guessed it right. It is the leather as well as a leather jacket. So the leather obtained from the animal's skin. It is actually called as the hide of the animals. So which part of the skin is it? It is actually the dermis part of the skin. So the leather obtained from the hide of animals is actually the dermis part of the skin. Okay. Then coming to the dermis part again, that is the papillary region. This papillary region, the papillae, the folds, you can see very clearly shown in the first diagram. The projections which are there, the ridges and the grooves. They are raised into numerous small processes, and those are called as the papillae, which help to fit between the epidermis and the dermis. And they contain lots of blood capillaries as well as nerve endings. Those are shown very clearly in the adjoining figure. Then here this diagram shows you how the receptors are present. You can see the various types of receptors present there. First and foremost, you can see the receptors for touch, then for pain, for heavy pressure, and various others. But the touch receptors are so very strong that the blind people, they use these touch receptors as their sensation. And they are able to read also and write also with the help of this touch receptors. And the script what they use, it is called as the braille, what is shown below in the diagram. That is, it has like you can say the pricking done on the metal foil. So due to which it has a raised portion which can be sensed by the fingers. So the pattern in which the pricking is there, that gives them the alphabets. So the sensation is done by the receptors which are present on the surface of the skin. Whereas the sensation for pressure, pain and heat and cold are in the lower regions of the skin. Now coming to the fat layer. The fat, it is subcutaneous fat, or it is also called as adipose tissue. It is made up of adipose tissue. That is fat layer, fat cells. They provide reserve food material, first work. Second is it works as a heat insulator, does not allow the body heat to be lost to the surroundings. Then it works as a shock absorber. That is, whenever you fall, each time the pressure doesn't go on to the skeleton or to your soft tissues inside. the pressure is reflected back by the fat layer. So it works as a shock absorber. And most important, it also provides a round contour to the body. That is, it is responsible for giving shape to the body, as well as it protects the delicate organs present inside our body. So giving contour, that is shape, shock absorption, heat insulation, and reserve food material. Now coming to the derivatives of the skin. From the skin of man, many structures are derived, out of which some are hair, glands, the various glands, the sweat glands, sebaceous glands, and the mammary glands, and the nails. So basically there are three: hair, glands, and nails. But under glands, we are studying three types of glands here. So first we will see about the hair. What you can see in the diagram is the hair. The first diagram shows you the complete thin hair. The second shows you the enlarged view of it. You can see the pocket in which the hair is present. It is called as the hair follicle. So all parts of the body are covered with skin, and the skin contains hair follicles. These are epidermal outgrowths into the dermis which are developed during the fetal life. That is, right from the birth of the child. Before the birth, you can say fetal life means. So they are present on the skin. Shortly before the birth, the fetus is covered with a coat of very soft fine hair. And a few months after the birth, these hair are replaced by new growth of coarse hair, that is rough hair. And the presence of hair follicles is extremely important in the repair of damaged epidermis. So the hair plays a major role. Now coming to the parts of the hair. The hair is differentiated into four parts. The first is the shaft, which projects from the skin. Then the root, which is embedded in the dermis. Then the bulb, which is the lower part of the hair. And the papillae, which contains the projection of the dermis. As you can see in the diagram, all the parts are labeled very clearly. Correct? You can see the hair shaft, then the hair bulb. This is the hair shaft. Then this is the hair bulb. This is the hair papillae, the projection. It has an inward projection in this manner. So this becomes the papillary region. Then the blood vessels and the nerve fibers going through it. So first let us see what is the hair follicle. That is the diagram of the hair follicle. The hair follicle, it's a pocket-like structure. It encloses the hair root. The hair bulb and the hair follicle together are responsible for the growth and elongation of the hair. So this is the hair bulb, correct? And this is the hair follicle. Both of them together nourish the hair and the growth takes place. As it grows further and further, it becomes a dead region. But the growth takes place in the bulb region. So first, the shaft. What is the shaft? It is the part of the hair that projects from the surface of the skin, and then the root part of the hair embedded within the dermis. It is enclosed in the hair follicle. In the diagram also you can see the hair follicles are there and the arrow mark shows you in which direction they grow. Then the bulb region. It is at the base of the hair follicle and it is in a swollen structure, inverted cup-like structure, which is called as the hair bulb. From the whole of the hair, the cells of this part only are living. So only the part of the hair present in the bulb region is the living structure. So the growth of the hair is due to the rapid division of the cells present in the root bulb. Then the color of the hair. The color of the hair is because of the presence of varying amount of melanin pigment. So here also you have melanin pigment present. So a grey or silvery color hair. It is due to the minute air spaces which are formed in the hair when the pigment is lost. So this melanin, as it starts getting lost from the hair, it starts creating empty air spaces. That is minute air pockets in the hair. And that gives you the greyish color or the shiny hair. So the hair also provides a sensation of touch. Why? Because it has the hair follicles surrounded by nerve endings. And that is the reason it becomes a sensation of touch. But apart from this, at times when you're scared, as you can see in the diagram, can you see the hand shown? And can you see the hair standing all straight? The enlarged view or the diagrammatic form is shown below. All the hair follicles which are there, they are standing straight and the hair is erect. They're making a 90-degree angle with the skin. And if you see the base of the skin, can you see the projections shown? Can you see where the hair is stretched out from the skin? See, all those regions are pulled out. So those you can see in this diagram also, like small projections. That is termed as goose flesh. So the hair are normally slanting, but they stand erect when one is tightened. That is when the hair are tight. Or this happens when a person is frightened or when a person experiences excessive cold due to or sometimes due to emotions. So the skin presents a somewhat contracted and wrinkled look. This state is called as goose flesh. And this is brought about by the hormone present in a body called as the adrenaline. And at that time what happens? There is a reason for the hair to stand straight. And that is the erector muscle which is shown in the diagram. It is also called as the erector muscle. Erector or erector. What happens is when they contract, they pull the hair follicle and the hair follicle makes the hair to stand straight. As you can see in this diagram. See, when the muscle is tensed, it keeps the hair straight. And the muscle is relaxed, it keeps the hair follicle in a slanted manner. So when the goose flesh or when the hair is erect, you can see the goose bump there created. That is a bulge section created, or a pillow erection it is also called as. Yes, this is the diagram of a hair follicle. You need to study the diagram very clearly with all the labelings, okay, and the functions of the various parts. Then coming to the further part, that is the types of hair present on a body and which all regions we have the hair. The hair in human beings are continuously lost and they are regrown. The scalp hair are lost in every 2 to 5 years. The eyebrows and eyelashes, 3 to 5 months. That is, every 3 to 5 months, eyebrows and eyelashes lose the hair and new hair continuously keep growing. The hair also provide a sensation of touch. Why? Because the bulb is provided with nerves. Here you can see the hair is also present on the eyelashes. And what is the function of these eyelashes? They prevent the entry of foreign particles. And the upper diagram, what you can see, that is the nasal cavity. So there are small hair present even in the nose, the nasal chamber. And the function of these hair is, first and foremost, it does not allow the dust particles to enter inside. It filters the air. And secondly, the air molecules, as they are rubbing across the hair, they create friction and it warms up the air to the body temperature. So these two important works are done by the hair present in the nose. Then there are facial hair as well, especially in the human males. They have the mustache and the beard. And this is the identification of the male sex. That is called as sexual dimorphism. So just by looking at the hair on the face, you can identify whether it's a male or a female. Obvious, the females do not have the beard and the mustaches. Yes, children, please read the text and try to find out your doubts.